Tensions are high in Minneapolis after an ICE officer shot and killed a woman in her car yesterday. Officials identified the victim as 37-year-old Renee Good. The Trump administration says the ICE officer acted in self-defense. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem claims Good had been stalking agents all day. State and local leaders, however, demand ICE leave Minneapolis, arguing the federal presence leads to violence. Vice President J.D. Vance addressed the fatal ICE shooting at a White House press briefing. He reiterated the message from Noem, saying the federal officer who opened fire yesterday was, quote, doing his job.
The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job.
I want to bring in Rodney Harrison, a law enforcement contributor for CBS News. Rodney, thanks for joining us. So when the vice president says the officer has, quote, absolute immunity, what exactly does that mean? What is the legal precedent for federal agents when it comes to deadly force?
So pretty much the vice president is saying that the agent cannot be prosecuted by the state. And once again, is this, I'm not saying in any way with any conviction that the agent was wrong. You know, it was a judgment by the agent, and it definitely should be investigated. I would like to see it be done by a state attorney, but because of the vice president's statements and saying that he's going to have this type of immunity, there will be no investigation by the state, and it will be investigated by the FBI. And because of the division that's going on in this country, because of the finger pointing, because of a lot of statements that were already made by the White House administration, I'm already predicting a biased investigation.
So, Rodney, we're learning more about the ICE officer who opened fire yesterday. So here's some information, including his name, his involvement in a separate incident several months ago that actually took a violent turn. So back in June, ICE agents in Minneapolis attempted to arrest a man who refused to get out of his car. One of the officers, the same man involved in yesterday's shooting, then broke a rear window and reached inside the car to unlock the door. The driver accelerated, dragging the officer about 100 yards. So as you can see in this picture, the incident left the ICE officer with injuries. The officer fired his taser at the driver but was unsuccessful in stopping him. He was freed when the car knocked him out of the window. So, Rodney, what does this information tell you about the approach and experience of this ICE officer? Could this play a part in the investigation into yesterday's shooting?
Well, of course, a situation that's happened in such a recent past is going to have an effect in the investigation. Listen, I have some concerns. I have some concern about the tactics. I have some concerns about the policies. As you can see, this is being in law enforcement is a very, very difficult and dangerous job. But the judgment that was made by the agent regarding to use deadly physical force, did it have anything to do with the incident that he had to deal with some months in the past? Did he feel as though that his partner that was trying to open the driver side door of Miss Good was going to possibly be dragged as well? So there's a lot of questions that have to be asked. Once again, is this it unfortunately turns into a situation where it's going to be a decision or a judgment call that was made by the agent. And unfortunately, a life was lost, and a family right now is mourning.
Yeah, that's true. The shooting's now being investigated by the FBI exclusively. So Minnesota officials say federal authorities blocked its access to evidence in the case. So is it typical for the FBI to actually take full control of an investigation like this?
No. Usually there's a partnership. Usually there's federal investigators involved, along as state and maybe even local investigators involved with a case. I haven't seen a situation yet in my 32-year career where the FBI is totally doing the investigation. So once again, is because of the agent and the immunity that he's receiving, I think that's why the decision is being made that the FBI will take total control of the investigation.
Rodney Harrison. Rodney, thank you.
No! Shame!
As cops, we're responsible for every single round that leaves our weapon. Eric Balliet is a 25-year career federal agent who most recently oversaw use of force investigations for Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI. We asked him what to make of the tactics used by federal agents in the fatal Minnesota shooting.
In my 25 years, I've done hundreds of vehicle stops. If someone is fleeing, that is not a justification for the use of deadly force.
In this moment, the officer crosses in front of the vehicle. He opens fire on the driver, 37-year-old Renee Good. The government says the officer shot the driver in self-defense.
She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over.
But the footage tells a different story. In this clip, we see Good waving cars by, and one car drives past her stopped vehicle.
Like they're somewhat impeding the ICE guys, although you did see the SUV drive around them.
Next, officers exit the car and approach Good's vehicle.
Right out of the gate, it's escalatory in nature. And then the agent with the black mask reaches for the driver's side door handle to try to open it. From the video, like the reverse lights are on.
From this other video angle, we can see that the officer has already crossed in front of the car. He's holding a cell phone.
They are trying to essentially take some sort of recording or photograph of the driver to show or identify her as a antagonist to their enforcement operations. What he does is cross in front of and stay in front of a occupied running vehicle. You should not be intentionally putting yourself in front of a vehicle unless absolutely necessary. And with a cell phone in his left hand, he draws his pistol with his right hand, and in very quick succession rattles off 3 rounds.
Under the Department of Homeland Security's use of force policy, firearms may not be discharged solely to disable a moving vehicle, and shooting at a moving vehicle is tightly restricted.
So my training was that you cannot use deadly or lethal force solely to stop a fleeing vehicle. Do you have another option other than pulling the trigger?
The Trump administration maintains the agent opened fire to avoid being run over, but the direction of the tires appears to be facing away from the officer to the right. There's still a dispute as to whether the officer was grazed or struck by the Honda. He continues to fire even after moving out of the way of the vehicle.
If she is intentionally trying to hit that agent or officer, those tires are pointed in the opposite direction, and the vehicle's trajectory after the shots would be continuing to the left.
After 3 shots, the car veers away.
Oh my God!
According to Balliet, both the officer's gunfire and the car accelerating could have put agents and the surrounding crowd of bystanders in danger.
These are all factors that law enforcement officers have to weigh before pulling the trigger.
Chad Wolf joins us now. He's the Executive Vice President of the America First Policy Institute. He also served as acting Homeland Security Secretary during the first Trump administration. Thank you for being here. Our Nicole Skenga is reporting that per DHS, ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations Special Response Team members get 288 hours of annual training. This agent also has more than 10 years experience. What would training tell agents to do in this situation?
Well, I think the training would tell them, obviously, to stop the individual. Again, I've seen the video just like you've seen the video and others. So the verbal commands that they are giving the individual behind that wheel of the car, whether either to stop the car or perhaps to exit the car. So you give them verbal demands, then you try to forcibly stop them. And if that's not the case, you try to have other individuals and other officers come in to help you do that. Obviously, in this case, when the car reverses and then lunges forward, that's a different scenario that they train for as well. So they do. ICE does a lot of their training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia. Customs and Border Protection and Border Patrol officers, some of which are on scene there in Minneapolis, have a separate training facility in New Mexico that they go to as well. And then they get specialized training throughout their career for other duty sets that they should do as well.
Do you think that the officers properly de-escalated the situation before and could have prevented this from happening at all?
Well, look, I'm going to let the investigation play out. I've seen snippets of videos from different angles. I don't have any firsthand eyewitness testimony, and there's a lot that goes into these investigations. But here's what I'll say. I think it's very concerning to me that the place that most people are going is obvious, is that law enforcement did something wrong here. And we should support our law enforcement officers instead of saying, why is this individual trying to impede law enforcement, not adhering to their commands, which are lawful commands, and then trying to abscond or get away from law enforcement? That's the concerning part. I think that's where our attention should be. Instead of saying, oh, ICE did something wrong and they shouldn't have done this. Let's let the investigation play out.
Right, but with all due respect, they
unfolds.
shot someone and killed someone. And so I think that's why people are asking, because a lot of people are saying that it shouldn't be a death sentence. But also, do you think that...
I'm sorry, it shouldn't be a death sentence to try to run over a law enforcement officer?
Well, that
so
is...
again, you've seen the video. You've probably seen one or two angles of the video. There are more out there that this investigation is going to unfold here. But it wasn't just someone randomly went up to an individual and shot them. If the officer in this case reasonably believes that their life is in danger, they have the authority to take the appropriate action. And again, that investigation will play out to
and so it sounds like from the experts that I've been talking to as well that it will come down to the state of mind of that officer and whether he thought his life was at risk. But I want to play you some of my earlier interview with CBS law enforcement analyst Rodney Harrison.
Just based upon the video and the things that I've seen and through my 30 years in law enforcement experience, what I saw was there was a possible alternative for the officer. I am concerned about some of the tactics, the officer, the agent standing in front of the vehicle. But then it comes down to the officer, and did he feel that a judgment needed to be made regarding stopping what he might have deemed a deadly physical assault on himself.
So there are some wondering if the officer could have stepped aside or whether he was acting to end a situation he got himself into. Your thoughts?
Well, again, hindsight's always 20/20, right? I mean, we could always Monday morning quarterback this, but that's not what the case law says. That's not how the Supreme Court looks at this. Is what was reasonable in this officer's mind at that time of the incident, in the split-second decisions that they have to make at that time. And again, I've seen video, you've seen video. I don't have eyewitness testimony. I don't know the commands that were given to this individual behind the wheel. I don't know what she spoke back to them. There's a lot that goes into play here. And again, I would just caution, we need to let this investigation play out to understand all the circumstances that went on in this case.
And I appreciate you saying that. I do have one more question for you. Do you think that the current administration has been too quick to completely jump to the ICE agent's defense and say that this woman was committing an act of domestic terrorism?
Again, I don't want to be repetitive here. My preference is to let the investigation play out to understand everything that was going on here. I don't appreciate, the left saying, oh, it's always the law enforcement officer's fault. I think we need to give deference to law enforcement. They have a very difficult job, particularly there in Minneapolis. They know that the local officials don't support them. They get no help from the local police department. They are on their own. They're on an island there trying to enforce immigration law. They've picked up over 1,000 illegal aliens in that state since this operation began. So they have a very difficult job. I think we should support them. We should give deference to them during the ongoing, as this investigation plays out.
Chad Wolf, we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
I want to bring in retired FBI Executive Assistant Director Chris Piehota. He served in the Bureau for more than 20 years. Chris, I'm so glad you're with us because I'm hoping you can help break down what we can see, what we don't see in this video. When you look at it, what are your thoughts when it comes to the actions of the agent who fired his weapon and the agents around him?
Well, glad to be with you today and glad to contribute to the conversation. What I'd like to do is paint a picture, first of all, that the ICE agents were operating in what they see as a hostile area with a lot of protests and a lot of folks following them around, acting in ways that are impeding their progress, that are possibly provocative or confrontational. So that sets the stage for the mindset of the ICE agents. In this instance, they were moving and their progress was impeded by that vehicle that was sitting crosswise in the road. They stopped their movement. They got out, confronted the driver. The driver then, for whatever reason, accelerated, tried to leave the scene very rapidly, reportedly struck one of the ICE agents and then was fired upon with lethal force, and car comes to rest further down the road. So
I'm
the
not
ICE
sure
agents,
that
I'm
we
sorry.
see her actually strike an officer. Is your understanding that she did?
It was reported that one of them. Yeah, it was reported that one of them was struck in some fashion by the car. I don't know what the extent of the injuries were, but I don't know if he got clipped by the rearview mirror, whatever. But the car hit one of them, and then the one agent fired on the vehicle. And what I would tell people also is, as the training goes, motor vehicles are considered deadly weapons when used as ramming implements. So when they saw the vehicle moving, they made that quick 1 split second assumption that she's trying to get away. She may ram into us, and the agent, in accordance with the deadly force policies that they operate under, was able to fire into the vehicle. He felt that there was imminent death or serious bodily harm for himself or others around him, and that's what ended in the tragic situation we have here. And I think it was avoidable on several levels, but we had this convergence of activity, and a young woman lost her life.
How do you think it would have been avoidable on the part of law enforcement? What could they have done differently?
They could have stepped back a little bit. They could have allowed her to leave. They could have engaged in more of a, I hate to use the word friendly, but maybe less confrontational dialogue with her. She may have gotten scared. She may have had the same adrenaline response that the officer had who fired his weapon. So lots of what ifs in this situation. I also believe that maybe if she wouldn't have blocked the road and impeded their progress, you can protest, but do so from a safe distance. And again, there's going to be a lot of what ifs, maybes, and could have, would have type of situations discussed.
Yeah, this investigation is really in its infancy. There are a couple of things that people keep asking about after watching the videos. One, that there was a man on the scene who identified himself as a doctor, but was turned away by the officers on the scene who told him it was a crime scene, so he couldn't enter. Also, the agent involved appeared to drive away from the scene a few minutes after the shooting, which wouldn't seem to be standard operating procedure during an active investigation, right? What's your take on both of those aspects of what went down?
I'm not aware of the person identifying themselves as a doctor. I know people tried to render aid, and they were turned away from the scene by the ICE agents. A lot of that is standard protocol so that evidence can be preserved. If she was already presumed deceased, they will preserve the crime scene. If she is still alive, they would have rendered aid. So it could have been a judgment call on site from the law enforcement folks. As far as
the agent driving away. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole situation was charged with emotion, adrenaline, and I don't know why that agent departed the scene. Generally, you would remain on site till supervision arrived, and then they would begin an investigative protocol, and then he would have been notified of his duties and responsibilities from that point on.
Well, Chris Piehota, former official with the FBI, really appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
No, thank you. Pleasure.
Former Minneapolis Police Chief Medaria Arradondo joins us now. Chief, thank you for being here. What are you making of the videos we're seeing and what we're hearing from officials?
Yeah, thank you for having me tonight. The video obviously is going to be a key part of the evidence that both the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the FBI will be examining that. There also is going to be just a lot of other videos, cell phone videos. From Secretary Noem's press conference just now, it's clear that her teams are receiving more information. It sounds like specifically from the officer, the ICE agent involved in the shooting. She let others know about his mindset, what he felt was his mindset at the time, the threat that he perceived at the time. But one of the things that stood out to me in this press conference, and I saw Governor Walz's press conference earlier, and certainly Mayor Jacob Fry's this morning, is the local officials and state officials had been saying that they had not been receiving cooperation or communication from federal officials on the ground. Secretary Noem has just stated that, and I wrote this down, that she wants to work with them to have a safer Minneapolis. So I think that's critical, because what the folks in Minneapolis are going to want to know is, are both sides talking to each other? And as this investigation continues to proceed, that's going to be critical that all of these agencies involved are transparent, are getting as much information out in terms of how the investigation is moving forward to the communities. And so that's what I'll be looking forward to seeing as the hours and days proceed here.
And you were chief of police when George Floyd was murdered in 2020. This is less than a mile from the incident we saw today, maybe a few blocks. Do you see any similarities to that case here in terms of public backlash?
Yeah, the actual incident where the shooting took place is literally about 3 blocks from where Mr. Floyd was killed. You know, one of the things that happens oftentimes is that the first public statement is usually not the most accurate. And so that was learned back May 25th, 2020. And, there was an immediate statement that came out. Then the video was released. And so right now you have people that are questioning, which narrative is actually accurate. And so obviously being in close proximity to where the events of May 25th, 2020 occurred, that rings out true. And then again, we just monitoring City of Minneapolis and its community. They're certainly trying to heal after the past 5.5 years. And so it's a very fragile time right now. And that's why it's so very important that I think all leaders involved in this really sort of lower the temperature. Facts are going to be important. Being transparent, getting as much information out into the community is going to be very important. And building those relationships even during the quiet times.
Medaria Arradondo, thank you for your time.
Thank you.